Well, Browns fans, football is in the air. We had OTAs this week out in Berea, and believe it or not, training camp will be here before we know it. But we got plenty of things to get to here from OTAs this week. What's to come with the Browns offseason schedule? There's some other things coming down the pike here before they break for summer. And it's an exciting time of year as we start getting that itch, I think, for football to be back. Obviously, a lot to take in, a lot to talk about. We'll do that here. Spencer German, Anthony Moeglin with you as part of Cleveland Browns on SI. Megs, I don't know how you feel, but I got to imagine you're starting to get that itch yourself as well.
Dude, I think I said it last time we were on. It was like watching the football fly through the air, man. I tweeted it today. I was like, nature is healing. Like, we're getting closer. We're going to turn the calendar to June. There's a lot of baseball left to be played. There's still some basketball and hockey happening right now, but it feels like football is on the doorstep. I know high schools are doing their mini camps next week. You got all sorts of stuff happening. So
wait, high schools do mini camps too? We didn't do mini camps in high school.
High schools get 10 practice days in the summer where they can have a football. So their workouts and then they're not supposed to have footballs, but then they get 10 practice days in the summer. So every coach, every team does it differently, but some of them will do like sets of 3, very similar to how the NFL guys do it. But regardless, footballs are flying, and it's we're getting closer to the fall here.
I didn't know that about Ohio football, so that's fun. Yeah, you know what it is for me, I think, is as soon as the Cavs lost, because for those who don't know, Megs and I also do some work over at Cleveland Cavaliers on SI. And if you haven't followed that channel, by the way, please do so. But we were so entrenched in, the Cavs, the playoffs, they're going to be in it for a while. This is going to be a deep playoff run. And then all of a sudden it was over. And it was like, oh, okay. And all of a sudden, then there was football at our doorstep. And it's like, okay, well, we're getting back into this grind at least. So I think that was the moment for me where it was like, okay, this is closer than we think. Football is back, nearly back, and we got actual things to watch out of practice now. So it's an exciting time of year. This like summer is coming, but then football will be here in short order as well. And yes, OTAs did kick off this week. The media had a chance to be out there for the middle of the 3 days this week, though that'll be the case again next week for the second round of OTAs. These are basically like 3-day sessions, only helmets, no pads, no contact. And really the thing to keep in mind with OTAs is that it's a lot of picking things up when it comes to like the offense. It's really made more so for skill position players than it is like defensive linemen, offensive linemen. Like there's not a lot that those guys can get out of these sessions, but they still try to integrate them in some capacity. But it is, it's a lot of like taking the playbook from the classroom to the field. Especially for rookies. It's a lot of just kind of like getting back into rhythm, getting used to the calls and things that are going to be sort of thrown your way on a football field from your system and your coaches and your schemes and the things that you're doing. And I think that's the most important thing to keep in mind here as we talk about this, because Megs, anybody who's like tracking stats and charting quarterback numbers and trying to post videos on social media and be like, oh, this guy's like already proving he's going to be an elite player. Like we can't really draw any conclusions, in my opinion, from much of what we see at OTAs. It's just about kind of like soaking it in, seeing who's playing well, what some of the things that come from it, and just letting it kind of be a moment in time rather than letting it be some sort of finite answer as to one way or another what a player is going to be or what a player is going to do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And even like deeper than that, like this is the first time for a lot of these guys to meet their new teammates, and Shedeur to meet Jerry Jeudy and Dylan Gabriel to meet Wyatt Teller, and a lot of it, a lot of it is that. And like, let's like tell the truth about this. The first real game isn't for like, I think it's like 96 days or something like that. Like there's so much time. And while we are getting excited about this, like about football season, the start of it's laughable how like very simple like installs would be for a day. I don't care if it's like we were talking high school. I don't care if it's high school, college, pros, peewee. Like the first thing you do, you put in your formations. Here's what strong right is. Here's strong left. And then you just build on that. That's all that football is. You start with running slants, and then you run a little bit deeper and then deeper and then deeper. And then that's how you build everything. It's very much so a brick by brick approach. And you make a good point. Like, anything you see that comes out of these camps is all just like clickbait stuff. Like that's all that kind of stuff is, because you don't know, like, and beyond like the install stuff, a lot of these periods that these quarterbacks are in, and I've been in a handful of quarterback competitions and just in my life, like, yeah, never at the pro level, but I've experienced them. You don't get the same reps. Like the top 2 guys will get mirroring reps. Guys 3, 4, and 5 don't get that. And by the way, they're going to get the scrap reps against the 4th, 5th, 6th string guys. They're going to get it against guys who are never step on the field. So you got to factor all that in, all those numbers that come out and that people love to see because they're scrolling Twitter at their lunch break or whatever it may be, are all just out of context and just numbers. So all for excitement there, but like,
I think that you provide some important context to this. Like you said, like you're not trying to sit here and claim to be some former NFL star or anything like that. Like, but just your experience as a college D3 quarterback, you know what these sessions are kind of about, where it's installing a lot of things, it's running concepts, it's seeing how they sort of flow, how they work, that's kind of the main goal here. And you're right, like people try to draw conclusions from things, so much so that like the overreactions almost prevented me from sharing a video of Dillon Gabriel having a pass swatted at the line of scrimmage by Mason Graham, because I was like, I don't want the flooding of my mentions with people who are like just ripping on Dillon Gabriel for one throw that got batted at the line, because that's the story about him, is that people think that's what it's going to be in his NFL career. So I shared it anyway, but let
me go quick tangent. I am the same height as Dillon Gabriel. I fought this battle every freaking fall and spring, because you get out there and these guys up front, and we're going to get into this here in a little bit, but these guys up front, they don't have to rush the quarterback because there's no pads on. They can't sack you anyway, and they can't stop the run because you're not playing real football. They'll just stand at the line of scrimmage and wait for you to throw and stick their hands up and then celebrate like they saved the world. And you're like, dude, it's not real. However, regardless of that, like, I just had to get on a little tangent there because I used to hate that stuff.
Yeah.
Because they just sit at the line of scrimmage. It's nobody's fault. Like, they sit at the line of scrimmage, wait for you to get in your release, hands go up in the air, and all of a sudden it's intercepted. And you're like, what the heck?
I think the reason I ended up sharing it was mostly because it was Mason Graham who made the play. Like, I was the number 5 overall pick. So I feel like it's worth at least sharing because of that. But I did contemplate not sharing it because I just didn't want the disastrous mentions that I would have had. Regardless, though, we do want to talk about the quarterbacks specifically and sort of what went on there with reps, the rotations, who looked maybe the best on day one that we were there at least. But, well, hold on. I was going to go back real quick. I was going to say, I think there was some other things that were noticeable that we wanted to touch on first, unrelated to the quarterbacks. And one of those things for me, Megs, was just how great I thought DeJuan Jones looked. He is healthy for the first time in a long time. I know he had the broken leg, but he has recovered from that. It seemed like there were some things he wasn't doing in like individuals, but once they were out there in like team stuffs and sessions that included the offensive line up front, he was, go out there like he was using the reps as if it was a real game situation, essentially, where he would drop, get ready to block somebody, or in a run situation, like get lateral and go down the line to sort of set a wall for somebody. So I thought his ability to, especially playing in a position that he's not necessarily used to, he looked like he was more comfortable. He looked like he was healthy. He was moving really well. I think it's a really good sign for the Browns that he's at this juncture feeling as good as he is and looking as good as he is. But yes, like, it's going to take more than just a couple OTAs to like put him over the top. But I do think, like, for a position that we have questions about and wondered, like, okay, who's gonna be the guy there? He is off to, I think, a solid start and looks like he has a chance to really seize that spot if he can just kind of build from what we saw on Wednesday this week.
Yeah, and from my perspective, right, you were there, I was not, but from my perspective, he looked leaned out too. Like, it wasn't.
Yeah,
like,
he didn't look overweight last year. Right. Last year he looked like he was a little heavier, and I think that hindered him. Yes,
and he'll never look small. Like 6'8", he's gonna look like a monster forever. But he looked lean. He looked strong. And just from my perspective, seeing just videos, I tend to agree with what you saw in person.
There are 2 players on this team that, like, just you can find them no matter what, and they are DeJuan Jones, just because he's so massive, And the other one is honestly Joe Flacco. Now, part of that is because he's one of the only people wearing like an orange jersey because the quarterbacks wear orange jerseys. But he's like so tall, like you can see his head above like everybody else. You're like, oh, that's Flacco. There he is. So I thought that was kind of funny. But yes, like he was somebody that stood out to me, DeJuan Jones. I also thought I brought up Mason Graham making the play on the Dylan Gabriel pass. I thought his get off is something that you notice on tape watching him out of college. I think when at rookie minicamp, when they did some drills where it was like, they have the ball and the stick and they pull it back and you like are simulating a snap and you got to get off. I think you could tell how quick he is to just like fire off and go. But to see him with people lined up across from him, I know, again, context matters. They're not in full pads. I actually think in full pads, it's going to be even more imposing to watch him because he's going to just like bully guys. But with somebody lined up in front of him and to see him fire off the ball and almost every time beat his guy to the spot like along the line of scrimmage, he was blowing up run plays.
Yeah.
He was blowing up the pass plays. He just looked like a force, man. And again, it's OTAs, it's early, but he was really fun to sort of see in that setting for the first time among the rest of his teammates and obviously a lot of the veterans on this team as well.
Yeah, the one clip I saw was it was like a run. It was like one of our wide zones to the right. Now we could do a full episode of what it all looked like and how we're getting back to Kevin Stefanski offense, which is so exciting. But it was like a wide zone to the right, and the first guy there, I mean, before the ball was handed off, was Mason Graham, and you're like, oh yeah. Again, but goes back. I'll be tongue in cheek here. Like it wasn't against, it wasn't going against Joel Bitonio or whoever, but it's still good to see, a young guy that ability to make that kind of play.
No doubt. I also thought Tryon Shoyinka, he had like 3 or 4 plays in a row where he was just like in the backfield. He actually got yelled at by Kevin Stefanski at one point because he ran into Kenny Pickett, which is a big no-no, and had to sort of like dial it back a little bit. But I thought in one of the key position battles on this team being, that defensive end spot opposite of Myles Garrett, he, I think, at least is showing like he's maybe a leader in the clubhouse for that spot. And I thought he did some nice things. Again, context, wasn't going against like DeJuan Jones. I don't even think at that when he was making those plays, but like, it was good to see somebody from that spot doing something, especially with Myles Garrett obviously not present, which we will get to coming up.
Well, a guy who stood out to me was we were talking about him pre-show here, Jerry Jeudy. He just looked like, he's going to look like the best wide receiver on the field all year long because he is. This receiving group has a lot of ground to cover, if you will, but doesn't change the fact that he looked explosive. He looked strong, looked fast. And I wrote a piece that went live this morning. You could go check it out over on the website, si.com/NFL/Browns. He had made a comment. He was mic'd up on Monday or Tuesday, made a comment that he's 10 pounds heavier coming into the season this year, which is, if that's true, that's good because durability is going to be huge for him as he gets into year 6 here. So I thought that he looked really good just from my eye, not at the facility, but he had a couple big plays.
So Jerry, it was one of those things where like he looked good. And because he looked good, I didn't really think much about it because it was just like, oh, that's just Jerry being Jerry. Like it was just kind of what I expected. But I will say this, like along the lines of what you were saying, you were alluding to. He seems very comfortable. Like he just last year, I think was a lot about like learning and getting up to speed on things, and like he felt like he had a lot to prove. I think now that he's proved it, like now that he's proven he can be a top receiver in this league, I think he just has like a different demeanor about him where he's like, yeah, I'm just going to go out and play football. And I think that's probably going to work it will be a great thing for him.
I'm curious to your perspective here, and this is something that just popped into my head while I was writing my story last night. I almost compared him, a couple of the clips that I saw, and obviously I got to see it and hear him talk, but like it felt almost like Jarvis Landry-esque, where he was like, hey guys, like we need to go, like we need to have a great day, like I don't care, what the situation, and that's day one, right? So it's like, everyone's going to be pumped up to be there and all that stuff, but he gave me kind of like a little hint of, is he going to take that leadership role in that room to be like, hey, this season may not go the way we want it to, but we're going to be good. This receiving core is going to be good. It's going to give it its all day in and day out, week in and week out. And, I wonder if that's going to be a common theme coming from him throughout the rest of the season.
I think it will be, and I'm definitely interested in seeing like how Jerry just continues to take that next step as now that he's kind of done it at the highest level. Along the lines of the receivers, and we can maybe move on to the quarterbacks after this, but I will constantly be watching just what the rotations look like.
Yeah,
Deontay Johnson's not there, we know that. But DeAndre Carter was kind of the next man up at the slot spot. Jamari Thrash got some looks there as well. This wide receiver room, I think, has a lot of questions. And so seeing how that eventually sorts itself out will be, I think, very much worth watching throughout OTAs, throughout mandatory minicamp, and then eventually during training camp as well. But let's get to the elephant in the room because we haven't touched on the quarterbacks too much yet. And I want to preface all this by maybe quoting Kevin Stefanski and saying, like, you really shouldn't read too much into anything that's going on out there. Yeah. We talked about that at the start of the show. Again, like tracking stats is useless. There's a lot of context that goes into like why they're doing the things they're doing, who they're going against, and that maybe that aids in somebody looking better than others. So just keep all those things in mind. But I think like the Browns certainly, how they handled the quarterbacks certainly spoke to their hierarchy of these guys at the moment. It was, a lot of Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett handling reps with the first team as expected, I think. The 11 on 11 stuff was mostly split between them. Dillon Gabriel got about 5 snaps. I think it was 4 or 5 snaps that he got, including the one that got batted down by Mason Graham. Like, there wasn't a lot of that. And Shedeur Sanders just, it is a fact. He got nothing. He got nothing in the 11 on 11s. Now, what they were doing were running like simultaneous 7-on-7 drills. So when Pickett and Flacco were with the ones on the one field, Shedeur and Dillon were on the other field against like the 3s and the 4s. And Shedeur did look very good against those third and fourth teamers. He threw a couple touchdowns. I also will say this in terms of Shedeur. I think like he looks like he's already made improvements to his mechanics, which is good. But in the grand scheme of things, and this is just my stance on it, it felt like Flacco had the best day, but I don't know that should surprise anybody because of the 4 quarterbacks in this room, he's the only one that has 0 learning curve. Even Kenny Pickett, as a veteran in this league, like he has to learn a new system or at least like adjust to a new system with new terminology, different players and things like that. Flacco's been here, and it might be different players, but he knows what this offense is supposed to look like. It's very suited for him and his skill set. So he looked very comfortable, as you'd expect for a 17-year veteran who was already in Cleveland not so long ago. And so I think he ended up having the best day. But I think that him and Kenny Pickett are the ones duking it out, obviously, for that top spot as the starter.
Yeah, and like Flacco, this is his 17th OTA, right? Like there's comfort in that. He knows how it's supposed to look. He knows how it's supposed to feel and all that stuff. But it is cool to see them out there. I think there's a lot you can learn from, if we were there every day and you could see everything. The one thing that, kind of stood out to me just in all of the commentary about it was the comments that were about Shedeur's just mechanically looking different from, a couple weeks ago when they had rookie minicamp till now. And that's a good thing. That's a really, really good thing that shows that he's committed to whatever they got him working on, whatever they want to see him improve upon with his throwing mechanics and all that stuff, that he's taking it to heart. And it is really hard. There is a learning curve for both he and Dillon because they spent 95% of their snaps in shotgun in college. And now they're going to spend 75% of their snaps under center and doing these hard play actions. And it's a different game. And there's a really good clip of Browns quarterback coach Bill Musgrave talking about what makes what makes Flacco so successful at that hard play action is because, one, he knows what the pre-snap picture looks like, and then he's got a really good idea of what the post-snap picture is going to look like because he's seen it a million times. But also, he's 6'6", and he knows how when he can turn, when he goes with that hard play action, he can turn, and he's going to see over everybody. That's a learning curve for these guys. Dillon, especially because he's a little bit smaller. Shedeur, because he's never done it before. So as this progresses and you see a lot of this, the offense starting to grow and get to what it's going to be, there's going to be elements of that where, these young guys potentially look a little bit don't look as smooth as you may be expecting. But like I said, it's all a learning process, and there's going to be steps to it, especially for these young guys.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, I want to again just reiterate, like, I wasn't drawing any massive conclusions from anything that we saw on one day of a 3-day session of practices that they were holding. I'm not drawing any major conclusions just in May in general, because that seems silly. The only things I'm taking away are the fact that, like, I think there is something to be said for how they like who was getting the reps with the ones, and sort of from there how things kind of played out. But again, that's also just based off of the fact that, like, we knew going in, Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco were going to be the ones sort of duking it out for that top spot, and the rookies were going to sort of have that uphill battle to get there. And this is the early stages of that battle. So I don't think, like, them being more reserved to reps with the 3s and the 4s means that they can't eventually get there. They're going to have their chances in the preseason to shine. They're going to have their chances in training camp to shine.
Yeah.
That's where this stuff matters a little bit more. And right now for them, it's just the thing I look for with them is more so like, okay, like we talked about with Shedeur, are they improving their mechanics? Are there things that you notice different about the way that they're conducting themselves? Is the playbook that they're reading and studying in the classroom or on their own time, is that translating to the field? Are they getting in and out of the huddle okay? Are they able to direct guys who have questions about, like, hey, where am I lining up?
That's big too, Spence.
Are they having to run plays multiple times because they did screw something up? Like, if they throw an interception, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh no. Like, now maybe if they throw like 4 in a row, maybe then yeah, like they're not seeing something and they're messing something up. But if it's just like a one-off where it's like, yeah, I misread that one. I want to see how they respond to that. Like, it's about the learning experience of this all, especially it's always that at practice, but especially this time of year. So I don't know that we need to draw conclusions from everything, even though I know that's the temptation out there is to do that.
Spence, you hit a good point, and something that goes unnoticed, and frankly it should, because when the games kick off in September, you should be past this. But getting in a huddle for the first time and relaying a play, dude, we're going to do it a couple times. We'll do it live shows here, and where you have to take a play that's told to you through your ear, regurgitate it to your team, get out, break the huddle, make sure everyone's lined up, make sure the defense is right, and snap it all within 30 seconds. It's damn hard. And these guys have not had to call plays. Like, they just look over the sidelines, get the signal, they clap their hands, and it's ball game. And it's the whole thing's a learning curve.
Now, I will say this. This is just a take for me that I don't know. I might be controversial. This is the section of the conversation that gets our comment sections just like really revved up and ramped up. I think that the Browns, on some level, are sending a message to. I don't even know if it's to Shedeur. I just think they're sending a message about Shedeur Sanders in terms of like where he is and what the road is for him. And so what I mean by this is, like, I think about it like this. Rookie minicamp, right? He is clearly, Shedeur is clearly like a step ahead of the rest of this class as far as star power is concerned. He is the star of this class. He's the guy that everyone's talking about. Everyone wants jersey, like updates on jersey sales. He was wasn't he the top selling rookie jersey like a couple days after the draft?
Yeah,
like
as of today, still.
Right. He is a polarizing player, and the media was there for both days of rookie minicamp. They made him speak on day 2. The day 1 was, hey, here's our 5th round pick our 5th overall pick that we took. Here's Harold Fannin. Here's our new stud running back and his partner in crime and Dylan Sampson. Like the Carson Schlesinger spoke day 1. And then day 2 was, well, hey, we're going to put the quarterbacks together, but Shedeur is going to go and he's going to sort of be, overshadowed in a way by the guys that go on the first day. Because not overshadowed completely, because he's never going to be overshadowed because he's Shedeur Sanders. But and on some level, it was like, hey, we're putting him day 2 because, hey, for us, he's a 5th round pick. Like he's not this star. We're not going to lean into that. Then you get to fast forward to OTAs. Kevin Stefanski's continued to say not to read into reps and things because they're changing day to day. Do I think Shedeur Sanders is going to go on the entirety of OTAs without taking snaps with the 11-on-11 drills? No, I'm sure he's going to do that. Whether it's 5, whether it's 10, whatever, I don't care. But he didn't do it the one day that the media was there. And so I think that was another way of them sort of tempering the expectations for Shedeur. Like, hey, the media is here today. They're going to take videos of this. People are going to comment on it. People are going to talk about it. They're going to say, why isn't he doing, or you know, like they're going to say, oh, look, he's going to be highly scrutinized if something goes wrong. I think they are saving those reps for when they're just kind of on their own. And I think that when the media is there, they're strategically sort of sending this message that Shedeur has to earn everything that he wants. It's not going to be given to him. They're presenting this to the media, I think, in that way. That's my read on it. I could be totally wrong. And again, this isn't me saying Shedeur can't get there. This isn't me saying that Shedeur won't get there. This isn't me saying that Shedeur can't do it. I think the world of Shedeur. I think he's a great player. I think he's a perfect fit for Kevin Stefanski's offense. So I think there's a chance and a path where he maybe does earn the starting job, or at least as the starter at some point this season. But I do think that they're sort of sending this message early on that, like, listen, there's a reason why we didn't draft him with the first 6 picks we had. There's a reason why we took him in the 5th round. He has to climb out of that draft position. He has to climb up this depth chart. If he's going to be the starter, he's going to earn everything. And what I think is most important from all this, Megs, is that I think Shedeur is fine with that.
Sorry, I was kind of frozen there, but yeah, I think not only fine with it, I think there's an element too that, like, not only are they forcing him to earn it, but also protecting him a little bit from, all right, on day 2 of his NFL career, he throws an interception. Guess what? The headline is going to be on ESPN tomorrow is Shedeur Sanders. And yes, he can handle that, but I think there's an element to that too of like, hey, let him learn a little bit, let him do it a little bit, let him have a couple days under his belt before we get there. And maybe next week, maybe it's next Wednesday or whenever you guys are allowed back. The media is allowed back, but like maybe then they throw everybody a bone and give him an easy script to get through so that he looks smooth and looks good, because it is unbelievable that anything that's posted about him, any video that's about him goes insanely viral and everybody's talking about it, regardless of it's good, bad, or indifferent. I think there's an element to that too, of like, not only do you have to earn it, but we're also going to protect you a little bit from, the talking heads world, because this is your first time as a young kid in the NFL, and that's really hard to do.
I think that's another good point too, on like the protection part of it, like him needing, not needing, but them trying to sort of just shield him from all that and just let him go out and learn, because that's what this is supposed to be about, is like learning.
Because guess who's really good, dude? If you're throwing against Denzel Ward, yeah, I don't care who you are. You could be Tom Brady in his prime. You could be Patrick Mahomes, and Denzel's going to make a play on it, right? Like, that is super hard to do, especially early on in your career.
So again, I don't think it matters, but I do think that they're sending the message like, yeah, this guy has to work his way up the depth chart. It's going to take time. He's going to earn it. Like, he has to earn everything he's trying to accomplish. It's not just going to be handed to him because he's this great celebrity that we drafted in the 5th round and everybody wants to see him play. So I think that feels pretty accurate. And like I said, I think the most important thing is like how Shedeur handles that, like how Shedeur handles this idea that, he is maybe 4th on the depth chart and has to work his way up. And by all indications, by all accounts, everything he says is the right thing. He's constantly talking about, like, I'm just here to work. He at one point, I think, had a quote where he was saying, I haven't really talked to my family much because I'm just so honed in on like learning the playbook and showing up to practice. Like, he is saying all the right things. He's doing all the right things. He wants to be great, and his actions are speaking to somebody who's going to maybe who should get there. But I do think the Browns are sort of making it clear he's going to have to start from the bottom and work his way up, and that's okay. But I think it's most important that he's comfortable with that, and that seems like something he's embracing.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. I continually just love to hear him talk when whatever he's doing. He dropped a podcast today on his own, or yesterday on his own show, and just talked about, hey, what's it been like in Cleveland? Like, hey, my first trip into the facility. This is the things that stood out to me, and here's my relationship with Coach Stefanski and some of the veterans, and it's just really cool listening to him talk. And then you sit there and you're like waiting for the other shoe to fall, because all we've heard was that how much of a problem it was going to be, but he's always saying the right things. And Spence, that's no surprise, right? He's going to be very well media trained. His dad is freaking Deion Sanders. He's not going to say the wrong things, but it's still impressive for the young man to always be right, because that's hard to do.
I did think it was interesting that Flacco had that comment about, like, I almost played with his dad and now I'm
Yeah.
playing with him. Is kind of funny. Just speaks to how long he's been in the league. What were your thoughts, by the way, on Flacco's comments on like being a mentor? He's talked
Yeah.
about this before, but he's super candid about it, and I respect that, honestly.
It's I thought what he said the other day was like perfect. And he always gets into the spot because that's where he's at in his career. Everywhere he goes, he's going to get asked about it. He got asked about it in Indy last year, and it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. It is a prime catch-22 because he even said, if I say I'm not going to mentor, you guys are going to write that I hate the rookie. If I say I am going to mentor, you're going to write that I don't want to be the starter. He's like, very clearly, my job is not to mentor these kids and make sure that they're doing the right things. He said, my job is to show them my experience. He's like, I've seen and heard a lot of things and done a lot of things in football. If they take it, awesome. I hope they do. If they don't, it's not on me to force them to take it. They're professionals now. Like, think about it from that sense too. Like, I always think about this. We're going to talk about it here in a minute, but like, all right, imagine going to work tomorrow and your boss is like, all right, you have to drag this first person, this college kid who just graduated last week. You have to show them the ropes. Like, yeah, you can tell them all the things like, hey, I've experienced this and this and that. When they don't do it, it's not your fault, right?
Yeah.
It's not your fault.
Well, it's a little different like the corporate world anyway, because it's like there are moments where you're asked to like train somebody and you're like, hey, sit down with them and like let them do. But like I think about it like this. Like, if you were getting hired and they told you like, hey, your job is just to get this guy ready to take your job at one day. Like, I don't think anybody would react to that and be like, what? Like, you're hiring me just to like hire somebody to take my job? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Like, Joe Flacco, I think what he said was the right answer, by the way. Like, him being like, I am here first and foremost to compete, to be a starting quarterback. That's my job. And everything else is secondary. And, if there's a young quarterback that wants to take a liking to me and like we hit it off, like, great. I hope that happens. But he was never going to sign with the Browns or any other team with the expectation that he's only there to mentor somebody or lead them to be the next starting quarterback for a team. Like, if he's signing somewhere, it's because he still wants to play. It's because he still wants to be a starter, and that's very much the case. I think just from a competitive standpoint, from what you want your quarterback to say, I think you want that answer more so than the other one of like, yeah, I'm really excited about like being a mentor to this guy.
I can't wait.
And I know like you can spin those words however you want to spin it.
Oh.
And him saying like, I'm here to be the starter or whatever, or however, he didn't say exactly like that, but you know what I mean. Maybe people will say that means he doesn't, he's a bad leader or whatever. I don't see it that way. I just think it's like the way he worded it was perfect.
Yeah.
It's like, he's there to play football. And if along the way he instills some things in a young quarterback, like it's supposed to, here's the way I'd put it. It's supposed to happen naturally. Mm-hmm. It's not supposed to be this forced thing where he's like in a room and he's like, train this guy. He's taking your job one day, sit down and do it. No, like, he's there to compete and hopefully win the job from his perspective. And, along the way, hopefully these young guys, Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel, pick up some things and they bring them to their own game. I actually thought it was funny. Like, Joe told a little story about how Gabriel was like trying to like mimic his cadence. And like Shedeur was asking him about, I forget what he said. Shedeur was asking about like something with like how he saw something on a play. So it's just funny. Like it seems like these guys are sort of mimicking him as a guy who's won a Super Bowl and has been in this league for a long time. And that's I think his point is like that stuff's just going to happen sort of naturally out on the field and in meetings. I don't have to sit here every day and show up to work and be like, hey, all right, what can I teach you today? And that's, I think, the point.
Yeah. No, and it's perfect. And more so, like, for our situation at the micro level, he's won in Cleveland. He won 5 huge games in Cleveland, got the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs, something that he took the city by storm. Like, they should be pulling every little bit of information they can about, hey, Joe, why'd you throw this? Maybe they pull up some of the game film from 2023. All right, why'd you hit Amari Cooper here? Why'd you throw it to David here? How did you get out of this? Like, there's so many good questions that they can be asking him, and you just hope that they are asking him, like, hey, just get as much information as you can, because he is a wealth of knowledge, and it seems by all accounts to be somebody who wants to share that knowledge but isn't going to force feed it to you. If you want to take it, great. If you don't want to, he's not going to lose a minute of sleep over it if you don't.
Well, from one thing that's not a very big deal to another thing that's not a very big deal, Myles Garrett was not present for the first week of OTAs.
My Lord.
Along with a handful of other veterans. I'll try to remember the list here at the top of my head. Joe Batonio wasn't there. Jack Conklin wasn't there. David Njoku wasn't there. Greg Newsome wasn't there. Deontay Johnson wasn't there. Am I missing anybody? I think that might be it.
I keep forgetting. It's slipping me right. It's
somebody else.
I think so. It's not. I can't get it, but yeah,
I had it written down. I don't have the piece of paper in front of me, but obviously Myles is going to be the one that stands out the most because it's Myles. Listen, I get it. He signed the mega contract this off season. I think it was Jimmy Haslam who at one point had the comments about, we do expect more from him. With great money comes great responsibility in a way. And I know that that's kind of an attitude that fans subscribe to. But I continue to say about Myles Garrett that he is a leader to a point. He is a leader because I think he's well respected amongst his peers because of the caliber of player that he is. So when he walks into a room, he commands a room anyway.
Yeah.
But he's never been, and at this point, he's never going to be, the rah-rah, here I am, giving him an impassioned speech to his teammates and get him fired up type guy. And so, listen, Denzel Ward shows up to this time of year every single offseason, and he talks about how it's important to him to get these reps and be there for his teammates. That's something that he cares about. Myles Garrett has been here in the past. He's not here this year, but it doesn't have to be like this indictment on Myles. And because I just don't think that's part of his DNA. I don't think that's part of who he is. He doesn't want to be like the leader guy, and that's okay. But also, it's a voluntary program. And it doesn't matter. Myles got paid to show up on Sundays
and sack the quarterback
and make plays. Now, did he show up to set the right example in terms of not staying out of trouble? Yes. You don't want to hear some story about Myles. He was apparently in Japan, according to his Instagram story, getting in trouble and getting arrested or something. Of course, there is that part of it. And I do think Myles has matured in that way over the course of his career. He had that accident a couple years ago. I think he's learned from some of these mistakes and has corrected those things. But I don't know that I need Myles Garrett to be here every day at OTAs just because it sets the right example. I know the money part of it's going to be what people point to, but I don't know. This is another instance of people making too big of, similar to the tracking quarterback stats at OTAs. This is another one, keeping attendance at OTAs is another thing that I throw the birds to, or I throw it to the birds. It's stupid to me.
You could throw the birds to it too. It absolutely positively does not matter. Watch one clip of 11 on 11 periods. The offense and defensive line are instructed to one step, snap the ball, offensive lineman, get into your work, whatever it is. If you're sprinting left, if you have to pull, you get into it, you make contact very light, and then that's it. This is not a session. This is not a 3-day practice session for defensive linemen. It makes no sense for him to, he could be there. That'd be cool. It'd be great. It wouldn't be a problem. The fact that he's not there and the fact that people are losing their minds about it is totally insane. It is insane stuff, because guess what? On the first game in September, if he has 2 sacks or no sacks or whatever, we're not going to point to, hey, he wasn't there.
Maybe if he showed up, well, there will be people who do that because they just.
He was there on May 27th, May 28th. He would have had 10 sacks today. Are you?
Somebody will bring it up, but it'll be a stupid point. Mind? So
it's great.
I don't know, man. This stuff just exhausts me. I think at this point, I don't know. I'm.
You know what's nuts? People losing their minds on on X, Twitter, whatever it is. People actually going on these soliloquies of he doesn't deserve the money, all sorts. Dude, come on. If they give you a day off of work,
I mean, listen, on one
level, come to work. Hey, Spence, I'm going to work things. You got to come to work tomorrow, or you don't, and you're not going to be penalized for it.
I mean, on one hand, I understand where fans are coming from when it's been a very tumultuous offseason for Myles, where he requests a trade and then all of a sudden he's back because he got his big payday. And I get where people are like, well, if that's all he wanted, why is he now showing up for this stuff? So I can understand that, but at the same time, I just don't think it matters. Talk to me if he doesn't show up to mandatory minicamp. Then you have a problem. Like last year, Amari Cooper didn't show up to mandatory minicamp and was kind of sending a message to the team. And it ultimately that led to like bigger problems because he wasn't happy when the season started and then he got traded. So, but here's the thing. Myles has nothing to hold out for. Like, he has no reason not to show up to mandatory minicamp because guess what? He got paid. Yeah. So he should be there. I'm sure he will be there. And that'd be the only way I'd start to worry is if he doesn't show up to that, if he doesn't show up to training camp. But that shouldn't be an issue. I was more worried that Deontay Johnson wasn't there because Deontay Johnson is somebody who's on like his last life in the NFL and needs to sort of make a mark on a team if he's gonna continue to play this sport. Now, he has been photographed at other portions of the offseason program because I know they've shown some social media clips where he's there. So maybe he just missed this week or he had something going on or whatever. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there. But like I thought that was honestly more concerning in the moment when I was there than Myles not being there because that's a guy who actually has like a lot to prove in terms of like what he's gonna if he's gonna continue playing football or not. If that makes sense.
I would add too. I want to go back to something you said a little bit ago about Denzel Ward being there and how Denzel talks about like, hey, this is important time. This is good work for him because it is. This is a passing camp. Like this is what you do. You come here. They do the 7-on-7s. They do the 11-on-11s. Like this is to get your feel back in covering routes and running routes. So I love that Jerry Jeudy's there. I love that Denzel's there. Yeah. I would prefer that Greg Newsome's there. Also, it's also voluntary for them too. Like it is, in my opinion, this work here, if you want to be there, I think that's awesome. It doesn't give, in my opinion, it doesn't give you a leg up on anybody. It gives you a couple brownie points, but like, hey, there's, if you decide not to come, guess what? That's what it's for. That is literally called voluntary OTAs for a reason. And the discourse around this is frustrating as hell because people are losing their minds over this. It's crazy.
Was there anything you wanted to add to the lineman conversation? I know that was our last topic here. We sort of stole the thunder for this one in talking about like takeaways because we highlighted how great DeJuan Jones looks. Jones looks.
You'll get it.
But wait, what did you say?
I said you'll get it. You'll get it.
Was there anything else that you wanted to hit on there in terms of the offensive line and the makeup of the offensive line right now at OTAs, especially understanding there's no Joel Bitonio right now. There's no Jack Conklin right now.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, talk a little bit about Zach Zinter because I saw a couple things. Just again, I'm not on site. I'm not there. I'm seeing all my stuff, through social. It looked like he also looks pretty lean. He also looks like he's slimmed out a little bit, lost a little bit of that baby fat, and turned it into some muscle there. So I'm curious what it was like.
Yeah,
not that you watched him in depth.
I was sort of more enamored with DeJuan Jones, but I there was a few moments, and even I'll shout out here Lance Reisland, former high school coach who does some stuff at Cleveland.com, just writing and breaking down X's and O's and things. And he actually pointed out to me first, like, you know who else looks good is Zach Zinter. And so then I started watching him a little bit more, and I agree with his sentiments, and I agree with what you're saying about like him looking a little leaner, him looking a little more athletic. He looks like he was really moving and doing some of the same things I highlighted about DeJuan Jones, his lateral quickness, moving out and sort of pulling to open up different plays in the run game. Those types of things did stand out. And I think that's a good sign because this offensive line seems to always get hit with some sort of injury bug, and you need those guys to sort of step up and make plays. But also we know that this very well could be the swan song, if you will, for Joel Bitonio, and Zach Zinter's next up in that room. Yeah. So having him continue to get better would be a major step in the right direction for this franchise, because then they would maybe feel good about the idea that they have a guard of the future to fill some very difficult shoes to fill with Joel Bitonio. So we'll see if that progress continues, if we see that next week and throughout obviously training camp and beyond. But I did think, yes, there were some early signs that Zach Zinter in year 2 is also making some progress. And you'd expect that. Like, all these guys are unfinished products when they come in, and there's always room to grow. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come for him as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And what's made Wyatt Teller so good in this scheme and what's made Joel Bitonio so good is they're freak athletes. Like you just because they look one way you can't forget how athletic they are. And I think Wyatt Teller is like the perfect example of that. And, the fact that when you see Zach Zinter and he looks like he's slimmed out a little bit, leaned down, still got that power to him. But to be good in this scheme, you got to be able to move, man. And it looks like from my perspective, and it was good that you had your eyes on it too. But it looked like he was moving around pretty well. So
yeah, and I will say this: like I want to watch some of these other offensive linemen just in general next week. Like I didn't get a chance to really hone in on Cornelius Lucas. He played a lot of left tackle last year for the Commanders, but he's going to be their swing guy. Tevin Jenkins, who's a new face, I didn't get a chance to see what he was doing much. Posick is here, so he was kind of man in the main center spot. But I want to see more of these guys just in general because these are all going to, at some point, probably be important pieces up front for the Browns. And they prioritize trying to, add to the offensive line at depth throughout this offseason. So something to keep an eye on for next week for sure, among other things. We didn't get to hit on everything, but we'll certainly come back and circle back to some of that stuff next week after we have more context for you. In the meantime, I encourage you to head on over to si.com/NFL/Browns to check out any of our written content about the team, including my overarching takeaways from the practices this week. We got a whole bunch of other stuff up there as always, different people talking about this team, predictions for Shedeur Sanders and whatnot. So head on over there and check that out. Also,
from practice from Spencer Chartnum.
No, I definitely did not do that. You will not find that at si.com/NFL/Browns. So if you're looking for that, you can go to, well, I'm not going to throw anybody else somewhere else. Yeah, we'll just say somewhere else. We're not going to actually throw. That would be fun though. We could really start a feud between one of our competitors if we called out somebody for being silly this time of year and actually keeping stats on quarterbacks. But we won't do that. Not today. Maybe another day. And I also want to encourage you to like this channel, subscribe to it if you haven't done so already, become a member of the Cleveland Browns and SI community. We appreciate you. We appreciate you hanging out with us and being part of these conversations each week. And we have plenty more where this came from, of course. So subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make us part of your regular Browns coverage, and we'll be sure we continue to deliver that to you each and every single week as we count you down to the regular season. And, of course, as we march through the regular season, which is going to be here before we know it. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Plenty more commentary to come next week after another day of OTAs and practice. Thank you for stopping by, and keep on following along with all things Cleveland Browns with the Cleveland Browns on SI.